This is a Hot Pie Media original.
Be careful about predicting I know it's been a weird few days for Facebook. I'd be very careful about predicting the end of Facebook or the demise of Facebook. I know the stock is down dramatically. Mark Zuckerberg yesterday lost on paper $6 billion. $6 billion yesterday. Now, there's so much to this. I mean, it's just, and this is not a bad thing. It's not a bad discussion. I think it's going to end up helping Facebook. I'm not telling you what stocks to buy, but I'm almost of the impression it's not a bad time to buy. There's a business argument, a business discussion. There's a political fallout issue, I think. I think the MAGA hats, this is bad news for you. I think you're about to get shoved further into obscure world. There's that part of it. And then there's this whistleblower now reaching out to a Senate committee in her claims. So I don't know where you want to jump off of these gigantic issues. I'll start with the business part, the boring part. So, of course, a whistleblower comes out and says that, Facebook knew that these knuckleheads were using the site, and you knew that these supremacists, these crazy people that eventually stormed the Capitol. We know the story. We know the demographic. We know that stuff. And she's saying they look the other way, which there is now. I'll play the soundbite of the book author who says there's more to this. But just the business part of this, okay? Facebook loses, it dropped in value dramatically. Zuckerberg loses $6 billion. So the whistleblower that goes on 60 Minutes, more is coming out of what she wants. She's delivered a written testimony to a Senate Commerce subcommittee. I told you yesterday, if you want to regulate content, you are a fool to let them do it. First of all, they have no right to go to the content portion. A business has no right to knowingly lie to you and deceive customers. I don't know that there's proof that Facebook did that. Secondly, she's saying this in her letter: I implore you to do something. When we realized tobacco companies were hiding the harms it caused, the government took action. When we figured out cars were safer with seatbelts, the government took action. I implore you to do the same here. Look out. Now, the business. So in a weird way, this is my argument about the business. Agree or disagree, that's fine. In a way, her testimony and the discussion is going to serve, I think, Facebook pretty well. It's going to help Facebook clarify what it is and who it's trying to reach. It's going to clarify to Facebook what it probably knew anyway post 2018, post-insurrection. This is going to be bad news for the MAGA hat communicators, pretty good news for mainstream business. So I think this is going to teach Facebook what it probably already knew, and that is we need to be mom book. And now for a while there, they didn't want to run off your crazy uncle. They didn't want to run off the knuckleheads, the conspiracy theorists. They didn't want to run them off. But then they became bad for business, right? Any media company, you are trying to deliver to advertisers qualified customers. Facebook for a long time just got to say, giant audience, have at it. A giant audience of soccer moms, a giant audience of college students, a giant audience of redneck buffoons. So as the media world becomes more cluttered, you got to refine yourself. You've got to demographically refine yourself. So the knuckleheads sort of did Facebook a favor. And I think she's sort of doing the business a favor. And by the way, I'm not at any moment going to justify getting in bed with the government. I think that is a sinister thing, which is another discussion. But the business itself, I'm sitting here watching this business go down in value. I think it's a good time to buy. Buy because they figured themselves out. And that is, okay, misinformation, knuckleheads, gone. supremacist knuckleheads, gone. We're all soccer mom all the time. We want to sell diapers. We do not want to sell Donald Trump hats. So I think it's going to help focus the business, which I think is going to further marginalize the MAGA hats. The fear for the MAGA hats, if you want to talk to each other and you want to market yourself to the mainstream, is the MAGA hats of the world. I think other platforms. Now, you're welcome to start your own, but you're going to be pushed further to the fringes. The fallout of this, now, what's going to be interesting is, as Ted Cruz and the game try to come to your rescue, the problem is it's not going to be a good look. They can't come to your rescue because you're too crazy. The story is too damaging. Zuckerberg getting outed for meeting with Trump is too damaging. So I think the MAGA hats are going to be shoved further by every platform. The anti-vaxxers, the same thing. I think you're going to get shoved further and further away, which is not, it doesn't make it easier to market yourself if you're Team Trump. Does that make any sense? I think these companies are going to find themselves out of fear and necessity having to make sure they stay mainstream and safe demographically. They're going to go out of their way, I think, to censor, police, run off, however you want to frame it, the crazies. And you can say that's good news. Okay, fine. I'm just saying I think it helps the business. I think it helps the business. I think if I'm selling soap, that's cool. I don't need them. I don't need the knuckleheads. So I think it's going to clarify the business some, which I think helps them get not back on their feet, that helps them find their lane a little bit further. I think it makes the business better. That said, what she's advocating that they do, your political heroes, this is going to be a train wreck of nothingness. She is saying she's now comparing to Facebook to the tobacco companies. By the way, I don't think post 1965, the tobacco companies had a great deal of responsibility when your doctor said stop smoking. But if you want to argue the tobacco companies lied, they lied about the ingredients. Okay, they did. How long they lied about it is, I think, is debatable. But okay, they lied. Or she's saying, and she's setting the groundwork, and soccer moms are going to like this, setting the groundwork for Facebook to be like the tobacco companies. And that is a dangerous business place to be, obviously, because you got to write big checks to survive. You got to pay off more politicians to survive. It's an absurd argument. It's absurd. There's no, first of all, I don't think there's any legal comparison between the two. They didn't lie about their contents. Now, they may lie about some other stuff, in which that is another argument. But the content itself, however stupid, however mean-spirited you think it is, they're not lying about that. And so what? Sorry, that is a so what. It's not the tobacco companies. These are not words, are not ingredients. They're not ingredients. They are not deceptive, harmful ingredients. And if you want to make them deceptive and harmful ingredients, you better look out. The media world better look out. So comparing the two, I think, is absurd, but it is an invitation for politicians now to say, aha, tobacco-like company. That's what Facebook is. That's what, is Twitter the same? What platform is the same as a tobacco company? A talk show? Which ones? Which one of us is more tobacco company-like? Which one of us should be deemed safe? Which one of us needs a warning label? This is a ridiculous comparison, and I don't care how despicable you may find the platform. You've thrown the door open to saying that thoughts, opinions, words are the same as tobacco companies. That's an issue. That's a dangerous issue. And now they're going to muck around and make a lot of noise. I don't think they can do anything, and they shouldn't be able to do anything. Doesn't excuse Facebook from lying about data. Doesn't excuse Facebook from antitrust. It doesn't excuse Facebook from any real legal issues. The content's being distasteful are not, to me, should be legal issues, and certainly not to the land of defective products. That's what she's advocating. And she's making a lot of noise, and I get why you don't like them. So I think the business gets better, the business gets smarter, and in the process, I think the world of being in the mainstream for the MAGA hats is getting more and more difficult. You're going to be shoved to the fringes even further. Number two, they're going to make a ton of noise about this comparison to the cigarette companies. The third part of this is the sinister part. And what's ironic is, and this is where the Ted Cruzes of the world kissing Trump's ass, this is where they get themselves into a weird spot, because the real controversy now in terms of how the government and Facebook were winking at each other, it turns out the wink was with Trump, who was claimed to be the victim of all social media. So that storyline, I know he'll try to keep it up, and I know a lot of people in talk radio want to keep that up, but the reality is Trump was the one in bed with Zuckerberg, according to what's being reported now. Now, that's a terrible, terrible thing. I don't know that that's illegal. At best, it's unethical as hell on every level. It's unethical for the government. And I don't care if it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump. You shouldn't be sitting in that office talking about this stuff. And that is precisely what is argued. So when Ted Cruz and the gang and Trump try to say they're out to get me, it's not going to work, because out to get you, you were covering that skinny guy's butt. You had a deal to look the other way. This is a podcast. I've been trying to get this guy on the show. He's written a book about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was one of the original investors in Facebook. Peter Thiel is an interesting, brilliant guy, a scary, brilliant guy. He is a Silicon Valley guy, multi-billionaire. I think he's got offices here in Austin. And he spoke at the Republican National Convention. And he's a little creepy, just in terms of power hungry, but he's interesting and smart. Reportedly, there's a book about him out, and part of the book is about how Thiel brokered a meeting between Zuckerberg, Jared Kushner, and Trump. Now that, I don't think it's illegal. That is slimy, and it blows up the right-wing argument they're out to get him. John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of Atx Hot Sauce in all 50 states, now in several retail outlets as well. So we're going to turn it over to the social media rock chef superstar, and we're going to walk through a few sauces and why you should buy. We've done beet heat, so we're second in line now for the tasting. Don't forget, everyone, go to atxhotsauce.com. So here we go.
All right, so this one is our smoked habanero 5-pepper. We smoke habaneros with ancho,
Is that going to hurt?
This one? No,
Yeah.
This one's actually really, really good.
Okay.
This is like your traditional tapatía, but without the vinegar in it, right? And because of that fermentation process that we've talked about all the time. This one is great on sandwiches, pizzas, things like that. Great on hot wings. I think you're going to really like this one too, especially the smoky flavor with the adobe chipotle and the smoked habaneros. We actually smoked the habaneros before we...
Does that go with the cab?
This would not go with the cab. This would go with the great Chenin Blanc, though.
I teed you up with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
That is good. That's good.
Isn't that good? It's just classic take. Well, it's a new take on a classic item. So it's called smoked habanero 5-pepper.
All right, don't forget
One of my
ATX.
favorites.
Don't forget atxhotsauce.com. Is this because of COVID, or is it fast-tracked because of COVID? And I don't know how anybody doesn't say it's fast-tracked because of COVID. The movie theater business is... I don't know what kind of excuses you're trying to make. And I think it's pretty simple that if you're going to release, it seems to me, based on these numbers now, if you're going to release a movie that goes into the theaters, then they need to skew younger. I think it's wishful thinking that the reason why we're now not going, those older adults, I hate saying that, are not going back to the theaters is only because of COVID. No, it's not because of COVID. We don't want to. There, how's that? And we don't have to. It's not because of COVID. It's been moved along because of COVID. Survey by Engine Insight shows that just under half, 48% of U.S. adults say they would be willing to go to the movies in the next week. No, not willing. I don't want to. There. Of those polled, younger generations are much more willing to go to the movies compared with older generations. Of course, that's not because of COVID. 63% of consumers said they would consider paying to stream a movie at home rather than go to a movie theater. Duh. You don't say. Disney Plus was the second most used platform for movie premieres. 33% of adults overall, 55% of Gen Z, and 52% of millennials use the service. HBO Max, one of the most prominent services, embraced the day-to-day theatrical releases, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. 64% of both Gen Z and millennials use it. 46% of adults overall. This goes on and on and on. It's COVID didn't kill the movie theater business. COVID is fast-tracking the death of the movie theater business, or the almost death, or the little sliver of audience that's left. And the sliver of audience that's left, with or without COVID, was going to be younger people who just want to go. I mean, and what's left is, theaters. If you're an adult and you want to get out of the house, you want some decent food and a glass of wine. That's it. You're not going to a mall. I think it's a time-wasting debate. What did COVID kill off versus what did the pandemic fast-track on its death? That's the way to look at a lot of businesses. And in that way, it's not all that unhealthy. I mean, I guess there's a market still there. If it is, you better release younger movies. Because I think it's wishful thinking to get the rest of us to come back. And I don't know why. I don't know why you would even try. I've never understood, even pre-pandemic, why you didn't initially just release them via stream. The question's been answered. It seems to me the question has been answered.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's The Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.